coming. We are honored to have you here with us for the unveiling of the Thomas Edison and Charles Steinmetz statues. My name is Brian Merriam. I am the chairman of the statuary committee for the Schenectady County Chamber of Commerce and its foundation, and it's an honor to have you here with us. This project is about 75 years overdue, would you say?
Yes, you're here.
76 years overdue. That was the most common question that people asked me was, what's taking you so long, Brian? I said, well, I wasn't born yet, so it's not my fault. Well, let's begin the ceremony by thanking in particular a number of people without whom this project never would have ever gotten off the ground. First and foremost, our Schenectady County Chamber of Commerce President, Chuck Steinmetz. Tremendous support. He was one of the first ones to rush to the project and say, we would like to have this be a chamber project. His friendship, his counsel, his support, his contacts with people with money. Very grateful for that. I'd also like to thank the chamber staff and the foundation. It was under their endorsement and the logistics that allowed us to do this with credibility. And probably most importantly, the committee that I've been working with. And we have most of those members here. Some were having to travel today, but I'd like to mention them by name. Vince Forte, Paul Heckman, Phil Barker, Deland Stegman, Nell Burrows, Ted Lutz, Peter Russo, and Robert Roy. We have been meeting together for 8 months to figure out how to do a statuary project and to encumber all the necessary details, of which there have been thousands to make this happen. To Dexter Benedict, our sculptor from Kenyon, New York. Dexter, raise your hand, please. A wonderful man to work with, not only flexible, but also a great visionary. We're very grateful to have found him. Our city engineer, Chris Wallen. If it weren't for him, we wouldn't have these beautiful parks. Chris, where are you? In the back. I want to thank the countless people who not only gave me advice, some of it solicited, some not, and the people that gave me advice as to who to speak to, how to bring this to pass, and of course the generosity of our donors. We have a list of our donors over here. I would encourage you to take the time to honor them by reading their names. We had some people that gave money without even asking, and other people with a little bit of arm twisting who said, this is the right project to put my money towards. And lastly, I would like to thank my assistant Joan, who gave constant work, not only making telephone calls, typing letters, arranging for meetings, and even baking the cookies that you're going to enjoy later on. Amazing.
Thank you.
So, thank you, citizens of Schenectady, for coming and honoring this great day. Well, this project began a number of years ago, in large part because we saw the city of Schenectady was rising like the phoenix. And we thought, what a beautiful city we live in, but conspicuous is its absence of public art. So we wanted to have things that looked beautiful, but by the same token, too, we were also concerned that Schenectady, being one of the greatest cities in the world, doesn't know how to tell its story very well. You ask the average public school child, where was the television invented? And you'll probably get, I think someplace over in Japan. No, it was in the GE Realty plot. Or you ask them about the invention of electricity to be something that we could use to make our lives better, and you get oftentimes the wrong answer. I would argue that historically, Schenectady was one of the greatest cities in the world, and remains today one of the greatest cities in the world. We are the center, we are the originator of STEM research, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And that story needs to be told. As wonderful as it is what we're doing today, even more important is what we have done and how we have established a foundation on which other people have stood. If it weren't for the dedication that so many great engineers, entrepreneurs, industrialists would have made, we wouldn't have what we all enjoy. In fact, I would argue that probably most of us would not be here today were it not for those decisions made back in 1886. The great people who founded, worked at, grew, and currently sustain General Electric and Union College have changed the world and have been responsible for inventions, creations, and our quality of life that would not be here today were it not for those decisions made, and they're still ongoing to this very day. The citizens of Schenectady owe a great debt of gratitude. But how many people know it? How many people are telling it? Where are the ambassadors that are sharing what a wonderful place is this city to live? My own 3 children looked down their nose at one time, steadily, saying, I can hardly wait to get out of this place. So I made it a point to try to make sure that they understood the history and the significance of what had been accomplished in this town. I'd also like to suggest, too, that the fact that we're all here today is because we have a time we can make it goes back 150 years in this town. But my great-grandfather would not have been connected for the clients that he insured that worked in General Electric at Union College. So my roots are tied in intimately to this town, and I'm grateful for that. But before we talk about Thomas Edison and Charles Steinmetz, I think it's necessary to go back to an even earlier group. I would like to go back to a group that has been, for the most part, ignored by the passage of time. Some of you know who I'm talking about. When the Ellis Locomotive Company was the largest employer in this town, there were people that were concerned about the lack of business diversification. So when a certain fellow left the Ellison Locomotive Works, he decided that he would partner with a fellow by the name of Stanford, who was a senator at the time, and they bought 8 acres of broom farmland. It's right about where that little old GE sign is now. And for $72,000, they built 2 beautiful factories. Well, soon thereafter, this fellow, Walter McQueen, made amends with the Ellis people, and he went back to the Ellis Locomotive Works, and Senator Stanford had an untimely death, and those 2 factories, those 2 brand new factories, sat there, unused. Well, providentially, in 1886, Edison was a little concerned about the congestion in New York City, and there were a lot of strikes down there, and he wanted to find a new plant. So he decided to venture up to upstate New York and see what was up here. Well, a fellow by the name of Colonel Furman, you may recognize the name Furman, there's a Furman Street in our city named in honor of him. He said, well, we really ought to send a delegation to meet with those Edison people. We might be able to convince the Edison people to take over otherwise empty factories. So he convinced them to come here. And they looked at those factories and said, wow, those are absolute gorgeous. We could probably use those. Well, the estate at the time had decided to move the factories quickly by halving the price. The $90,000 it was worth, they halved down to $45,000. Wow. But Edison was known for being a somewhat tight-fisted man, and he offered $37,500 and not a penny more. So there was a $7,500 gap between what Edison people would offer and what the estate would accept. And Colonel Furman and his friends said, we have to do something about this. Well, this was long before the days of the Metroplex, hard to believe. Long before an EDZ or an IDA or an SLDC or any other economic development engine. So what they did was they passed the hat. He got together with his group of friends and they passed the hat to raise the $7,500. Now I tried to do some research to figure out how much money was that really by today's standards. And I could find a mathematical calculator going back to 1915. And that's as far as I could get back on the internet. And according to 1915 calculation, we have had inflation of 2,238% since that day. So if you do the math, and I'm sure some of you engineers already figured this out, that comes to $175,350. That's only to 1915. Go back to 1886 yet. We're talking a substantial amount of money, but so committed were these business people, philanthropists, and citizens that they raised that much money amongst themselves. They then wired Edison people and said, we have the money, come north. It was hoped that by the 1st of October of 1886 that the Edison Electric Works might employ as many as 200 people. And by the 1st of January of 1887, maybe as many as 1,000 people. And of course, at the height of the Second World War, General Electric employed 60,000 people. You can't tell me that those men, and probably women as well, were not visionaries of their day. Now, their names are all reproduced for you on this plaque. So I'm going to encourage you, before you leave this site today, read each one of those names and give honor to the great vision of people that saw into the future and did something about it. So today we're primarily here to recognize Thomas Edison and Charles Steinmetz. But you might argue the question, why bother? Is these guys have been old in the grave for 80 years. Why bother to recognize people that are long gone? Yeah, we know about these guys somewhat. We read about them back in middle school, but why bother now? And I guess that really depends upon your answer to the question, what is your definition of greatness? And I'm going to suggest that basically greatness boils down to people of vision, people of tenacity, people of competence, and people ultimately that have a vision. And I would suggest that in many ways these men represent that very thing. So I'm going to shut up now, but I at least wanted to make sure that we all understood why we're here and the importance of what we're here to talk about. More important than listening to me yabber on, I'd like to introduce to you two very important men. Now, I don't personally know these men well enough to be able to say extemporaneously what is so great about them, but I'm going to read their bios, if you will. Please give me a couple moments here. The first one is Dr. Stephen Charles Ainlay. I won't ask what Charles had anything to do with our statues here, but he became the 18th president of Union College on July 1st, 2006. He also holds a faculty position as professor of sociology at Union. Before joining Union College, President Ainlay spent 23 years at the College of the Holy Cross in Worcester, Massachusetts. You didn't think I could actually pronounce Worcester, did you? President Ainlay has been a tireless advocate for Union College. During his tenure, Union College completed the, quote, "You Are Union," unquote, campaign, which surpassed his $250 million goal. That sort of dwarfs my little 75 here. He has also enjoyed record applications, and the academic qualifications of students have never been stronger. The student body is also the most diverse and international in college's history. President Ainlay has overseen the development of 2 strategic plans at Union. These plans have guided decision-making and the allocation of resources, and the college has pursued a number of strategic initiatives. Union has